You can start recording. Greetings, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our monthly ICF community meetup. It's always inspiring to see coaches, leaders, and change makers coming together to learn, share, and grow together. Today, we have the immense privilege of learning from someone who I highly respect. She's a fellow ICF coach and a great community builder. She has over 3 decades shaping leaders and building thriving organizational cultures. So, Marina from New Zealand, her career spans a wide range of industries. Her work reflects a deep commitment to excellence, high standards, and above all, a passion for helping both individuals and organizations flourish. She has spent 15 years as a facilitator with the New Zealand Institute of Management, empowering professionals, and another 5 years with Mental Health Education Resource Center. She's made a profound impact, and I think all people who are part of her community can totally vouch for that, even on LinkedIn as well. And her impact in promoting workplace well-being, resilience, in mental health awareness have gone a long way. So, welcome, Marina. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. And we'd love to hear from you on about you, um, your impact, and of course, the topic for today, conflict resolution in the corporate sector. Over to you, Marina.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the committee for giving me the invitation and allowing me the privilege of speaking here tonight. As Khadija said, I have a career of 30 years in facilitation and coaching, and I have a community of coaches that I support and look after in New Zealand. I'm touching the surface of conflict resolution tonight. So I've got half an hour or 35 minutes or so. So please understand that this is just touching the surface. I will be happy to take questions at the end when I finish my presentation. So if you have a question, feel free to pop it into the chat and or come off mute later on and I will answer your question then. I'm going to present tonight, and I understand that you will be listening with multiple hats on. You will have your personal hat on. How does this relate to you as an individual? You'll have your family hat on. How does this relate to your family? And you'll have your professional hat on. How does this relate to the clients that you support and the work that you do in organizations? And I believe that when we help our clients to navigate conflict, we need to understand that it is a very nuanced topic area with lots of interesting twists and turns, which I will explain as we go along. Yesterday, I was working in an organisation in New Zealand with a young leader in her 30s. Her manager had said to me that she could come across as a little intense with her team members. Then I sat down with this young woman and found out that most of her team members have been in their roles for more than 40 years. They're close to retirement age and they really don't care terribly much about the company, what they're doing, or quality standards anymore. And this young leader was incredibly frustrated with these older people who seemed to need to be told how to do their job every single day. No wonder she felt like she needed to go in and do battle at work every day. And there was the difference between the manager who felt that she needed to manage her team and herself a little differently, and the woman herself saying, "This is really hard. I'm really struggling with a team full of people who are ready to hang up their jackets and go home for the rest of their life." So that's what I mean by it is very nuanced. But let's begin at the very beginning. We spend the first 15 or so years, some people 18, some people 29, But we spend the first chunk of our life watching our parents engage in conflict. And then we spend the next 60 years with many of us trying to reverse what we watched. And as many of you will understand, the brain has very sensitive periods when experiences imprint most strongly on our neural circuits. Childhood and teenage years are prime windows of neuroprocessing. Frequent, intense, unresolved stress without any buffering support disrupts developing brain architecture and stress response systems with effects that go right through adulthood. Supportive, stable relationships can help to buffer these effects, but we have a strong wiring that's happened in our childhood. And I can tell you that I had the first 15 years of my life with living with parents who didn't like each other, didn't communicate well with each other, and there was a lot of anger and a lot of unhappiness in my childhood home. So I understand that watching your parents in conflict is really rather awful. Neuroscience shows that early adversity alters the amygdala prefrontal connectivity, exactly the system that governs threat detection, impulse control, and de-escalation in conflict. So the emotion regulation circuitry, which is amygdala prefrontal cortex connection, is shaped by our early experience and continues maturing through our adolescence, meaning that the repeated patterns of conflict in the home are the very systems that we will use to manage conflict as adults. Children don't just hear conflict, they learn it. And repeated exposure teaches what to do when emotions run high. And these patterns that are learned, they can be relearned, but adults often retain the language, the behaviors, and need quite a lot of support to reprogram, relearn, and do things very differently. That's the first thing that I want to lay as the foundation for understanding conflict. And the next thing won't be of any surprise either, but I think we all need to confront this, that in exactly the same breath that we are frustrated by someone, we are also frustrating to someone. And I think it's so funny, really. It's quite a conundrum because every single person looks at other people and thinks, wow, you're frustrating. Wow, your behavior is inappropriate. But as they say, when you point one finger forward to somebody else, there's three fingers pointing back at us. And most of us are not aware of how frustrating we are to other people. My next slide will not be unusual, or I'm sure that you will understand this, that conflict has the ability to diminish people's self-esteem, damage relationships, destroy teams, and in fact, many of the people that I work with in organizations have disclosed to me that they've left the organization not because of the company, not because of their role, but because of a relationship that they couldn't navigate. And their unhappiness with that relationship has made them make the big decision to leave the organization. So many organizations lose good people because of conflict and relationship issues. And look at all of the ways that conflict can cause disruption and lower the productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency in an organization. It really has a lot of power. But also, the power of conflict is that it can, if handled successfully, do good. And all of the things that we just saw can be reversed. So it can improve relationships, it can bolster collaboration, it can build individual self-esteem when people get courageous and brave and stand up and say what needs to be said, use assertive communication, and things can get better. I think it's very important that everybody understands this concept that no matter what you do, how well you respond, how logical and objective you are, how emotionally intelligent you act, we all have zero control over the other person's response. And sometimes we think, my goodness, I did this like a textbook. I managed this situation so well. I should have had a better outcome than the outcome that I received. But the reality and the truth is that we have zero control on how other people respond and what their timeline is like, what their emotional status is like in the moment, and also what other things they're dealing with at the moment. So sometimes there are individuals and they have a very patient way of operating and they seem to absorb a lot of stress and they smile through everything, manage, carry on, carry on. And then something that we think is quite minor can can cause disruption to them, and suddenly everything explodes. Um, Conflict happens, and we think, what? That was really nothing. But we never know what the mountain is that's behind this one event. So, what we can't control, other people's thoughts, their emotions, their energy, their intentions, their mindset, boundaries, the words they choose to use, their tone of voice and body language, their timing, their curiosity, their listening. We can't control anything around other people, but of course, we can control all of these things for ourselves. And that's the focus that everybody needs to focus on in terms of conflict, whether it's for ourselves, whether we're teaching our children, whether we're coaching with a client. It's all about us and the way that we manage. So, to create the potential to connect with others, we want to be encouraging people to take accountability for their own needs, emotions, and choices. And I'm sure that for those of you who are coaches, you have clients, as do I, who are very, very reticent to speak up about their own needs. I had a client once who was a special needs teacher working in a primary school, a large primary school, and she was being bullied by the principal. And so we had a 3 hour session where I was building her assertiveness. We were practicing speaking out loud what needed to be said and what she felt she wanted to say. And at the end of the session, which I thought went quite well, I said to her, what's the chance that you're going to go and have this conversation? And she said, very low. Even with the tools, even with the help, even with the support, just the concept and the thought and the horror of being honest and saying what she in her brain or in her heart she wanted to say, in her brain she wanted to say, but she really felt that it was far too uncomfortable for her. We also need to understand the contribution that we have made to where the situation has ended up. And as I said right at the very beginning, that just in the same breath that we find other people frustrating, they find us frustrating. It can be a difficult thing to look at your behavior and say, in this difficult situation, what did I do, say, how did I act that might have added fuel to this fire? And then noticing the direction that I'm heading and choosing to shift direction if I need to. One of the small empowering things that I share with people, because a lot of the people I talk to feel they have no choice. They say things like, I can't leave this job. I can't leave this relationship. I can't leave this situation. And tiny little thing, but we always have three choices: live with it, leave it, or change it. And sometimes that's just the micro learning that helps people to understand that if you're staying in the situation, then you are making a choice. You're choosing to stay. But we need to recognize that by choosing to stay, we've chosen not to change it and not to leave it. And those were choices that were available to us. Also, in creating the potential to connect with others, we need to embrace reality and let go of what we can't control. I have had a relationship with a person for 30 years that hasn't got better, despite my hope, my effort. 30 years later, the relationship isn't any better than it was 30 years before. So, chances are it's not going to get better ever. And we need to recognize that because conflict is about change, there may be some loss involved. We may be required to give up something, to come to the table and to compromise on things, but not necessarily, and I'll talk about that shortly. And we all need to give up our desire to control how other people feel, behave, speak, act, respond. So, what might the other person be feeling or be fearing? Be feeling or be fearing? In conflict, the visible disagreement, the thing you can see, is rarely the real issue. The real issue is the threat that sits beneath it. And the threat is almost always one of three human needs that has been challenged. Number one, safety. The need to feel physically, emotionally, and psychologically safe, to feel free from threat, judgment, or harm. Safety might be challenged. Number two, significance. The need to feel seen and valued, competent, and respected. It's the foundation of self-worth. Maybe this individual in conflict, their significance is in threat. And that's the situation where I was facing with the leader yesterday. And I talked to her about these people retiring may feel that they are no longer significant. And the last one is belonging. The need to feel accepted, included, and connected, to know that you still have a place even when there's tension or challenge. So safety, significance, and belonging are often the threat that sits behind the conflict. Something that I encourage organisations to have is a code of conduct for conflict, establishing the ground rules for acceptable behaviour. We won't raise our voices. We won't call other people names. Our conversations are confidential, and the details of the conflict only remain with the people involved. Sometimes there are individuals who will use quite psychological language to give them permission to gossip about the conflict that happens. And they might say, I just needed to debrief with someone about this. But actually what they were doing was sharing and gossiping. Debriefing was just a pretty word to cover up the fact that gossiping was going on. So I believe that every organisation and every family should have a code of conduct for what the rules of engagement are in conflict. To practice the process of conflict resolution, we must completely abandon the goal of getting people to do what we want. That's Marshall Rosenberg who said that. And for everybody who thinks there's only one way to solve a problem, and there are people, in fact, I've had many people who have said, so-and-so individual, it's their way or the highway. I'm not sure if you've heard that yourself, but there are many different ways that things can be resolved. And so in order to walk through conflict effectively, we all need to have an open mindset to options and possibilities and different pathways that could be taken. Whenever I'm speaking about conflict, I always share the next quote. It's from a book that has been transformational in my life, and anybody who's involved in coaching, I'm sure, has come across the name Viktor Frankl. In May this year, I went to his home in Vienna, which is now a museum. Viktor Frankl was the survivor of Auschwitz, several other concentration camps as well. And he is the author of this quote: "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning within weeks of being liberated from Auschwitz. He wrote it so fast because he was actually writing it in the concentration camp without pen or paper, but thinking about the things that had happened to him. And his way of responding to the people who acted so dreadfully against him is really rather amazing. Some of his speeches are online, and I always find them very, very inspirational. The thing that I've learned, and I probably learned this at about 40, was that I usually reacted to a situation instead of responding. I acted quickly. I thought I had to. I thought I had to say something immediately, do something immediately. And when I came across this and I really understood it, I thought, wow, there's a whole lot of people in our world who are not responding or reacting immediately. They're taking their time, they are being considered, they are sleeping on it, and they are responding in a thoughtful, logical, careful way. So the space, and I call the space, I have a nickname that I gave it, I call it the space for grace. Because if you give yourself a space, you are going to be more gracious, more considered, more thoughtful, more helpful, more conscientious. Maybe all the space you can give yourself is 5 minutes. Leave the room, breathe fresh air. Or maybe it's 48 hours, or maybe it's a week. Whatever the space that's appropriate that you can take, I encourage people to extend the space for grace. One night I went to bed and I was thinking about a committee that I was the chairperson of. We'd had a particularly challenging meeting that day, and I realised that the committee was going in a completely different direction than what I had established I was happy to do as chairman of the committee. And I went to bed stressing about the direction that the committee was going, stressing about my inability to change perspectives. I went to sleep, and in the night, my brain had an aha moment. And when I woke up in the morning, I felt such a sense of relief because at night I had not thought that I had the choice to stand down as chairperson. And in the morning, my brain said to me, "You don't have to be the chairperson of this committee. You can resign," which is what I did. And I'm sure that everybody has experienced that. You go to bed with one thought, you wake up in a different direction the next day, different thoughts, and that's the space for grace. I want to touch very briefly on DISC and the power of DISC to help with conflict resolution. So, for those of you who have a little knowledge about DISC, there are 4 quadrants, but there are a multitude of different combinations of the D, I, S, and C. The D stands for direct. That's a task-oriented and external-oriented individual who is labeled as an eagle. There is the influencer, who is an externally oriented people person, a peacock. There is the steadiness S, people-oriented and internal. So the difference between internal and internal people keep their thoughts, their thinking processes within themselves. And they actually prefer to be by themselves too. That's the S for steadiness, the dove, symbol of the dove. And finally, the owl, the C for conscientious, an internal and task-oriented individual. Now, each less than
Is that
1% of society are one style.
is one mixed properly on our plates?
I am a DI. My husband is a CS, and you can have a combination of 2 or 3 different styles. So you might be S 20%, C 60%, D 20%. So lots of different combinations, and there are plenty of people in this community who know DISC and can help if you're interested in this further. All I want to say, I'm just going to go around them each and describe their reaction and responses to conflict, because these are known behaviors that can be predicted. And there are a lot of people who find conflict quite unpredictable. So when you learn about DISC and you realize that individuals can be, their behavior can be predicted ahead of times, that is a big game changer. So the D, the eagle, their unbearable feeling is a powerlessness or loss of control. So the power's been taken off them. They have no control. Their go-to response in conflict is to push harder, take charge, confront directly to reassert their control. Their personal challenge in conflict is to slow down, to listen rather than to dominate, and to recognize that vulnerability doesn't equal weakness. The I, the peacock, the influencer, their unbearable feelings are rejection and disapproval. Their go-to response in conflict is to talk it out, smooth things over, avoid negativity in order to protect relationships and connectivity between people. Their personal challenge is facing discomfort and allowing deeper, less pleasant conversation. So the courageous conversation is a challenge instead of glossing over the tension, smiling, and pretending like nothing is wrong. The dove, the steadiness, their unbearable feelings that create conflict for them is the disruption or disconnection in relationships and change. And if you look, the opposite bird to the dove is the eagle. The eagle is the change maker, and the dove finds change quite challenging. So they don't enjoy a lot of change, especially when the change hasn't been communicated well, and they're not even on board with why it's happening. So their go-to response is to withdraw, to appease, and to accommodate to restore peace. Peace is their primary preference for every relationship. Their personal challenge is being honest, speaking up, and not suppressing their own needs for the sake of harmony. And finally, the owl, their unbearable feeling is being wrong, criticized, misunderstood, or having their work picked and poked apart. Their go-to response is to retreat into logic, defend with fact, and shut down emotionally. And their personal challenge is to accept imperfection, engage emotionally with other people, not just intellectually during conflict, and not walk away from communication. Now, there's another model that I find incredibly helpful that can layer on beside DISC. This is the Thomas Kilmann conflict resolution model. I highly recommend this model, and I teach it whenever I'm dealing with conflict. So notice the axis at the bottom is cooperativeness, low versus high. And then on the side, we have assertiveness, low versus high. So the first area in the model is avoiding, taking a step back from the conflict to let it play out. That's low cooperativeness and low assertiveness. And that's most likely to be the dove. Then we have also at the bottom, high cooperative and low assertive, which is accommodation, and that is most likely to be the peacock. On the left-hand side at the top, we have a competing model, which is high assertiveness and low cooperativeness. That is most likely to be the eagle. In the middle, we have middle assertiveness and middle cooperative with the compromising, and that is most likely to be an owl. And an owl will often come to conflict with the mindset of everybody has to give up something. So we're having a meeting, we've got conflict, and their go-to model is, right, what are you going to give up? What am I going to give up? What do we all have to give up to make this work? But the fifth model is high assertiveness and high cooperation, and that's a collaboration model. And that requires a lot more effort, but it's incredibly fulfilling for everybody. And maybe nobody has to give up anything if we can think cooperatively and look for win-win solutions. So the challenge, when we learn to collaborate, we rise beyond ego and we enter the space where growth, empathy, and wisdom can meet. If there is a lot of emotion in the conflict and the two parties, or however many parties there are to the conflict, if they can't collaborate, then an independent, unbiased, non-emotionally connected to the situation individual who comes to sit at the table, and we would sometimes call that person a negotiator, can work to help the people with the conflict find a resolution that will be acceptable to everybody. But here's a thought that we often don't think about. What if managing conflict wasn't just an emotional skill, but a metabolic one? So I want to introduce you to the concept of your body budget. And it's the best investment you can make for your conflict resolution success. When you're tired, think personally now, when you're tired, hungry, rushed, or anxious, how does your capacity for empathy change? Can I have a thumbs up for, or a thumbs down for when you're tired, hungry, rushed, or anxious? How does that affect your capacity for empathy? So does it affect it for good, or does it affect it in a challenging way? I think we know the answer to that question for all of us. What happens to your tone of voice, your posture, your patience when your body budget is low? Often all of those things are affected. Which of these conflict patterns, avoiding, competing, accommodating, tends to appear when you're depleted? How many times have you looked at a situation and you've just said, I don't care, but you do? Or you've said, let them have it, whatever they want, I don't care, but you do. I don't want to know about it, but you do. It's probably because your body budget is low. You don't have the energy or the capacity to deal with it. So how do you typically try to borrow energy when you have a low body budget? Do you use caffeine, chocolate, control? And how do these things serve you? How would your next conflict look different if you entered it with a full tank instead of an empty one? So, what are 3 daily habits that replenish your body budget? What are 3 common habits that drain it? And what is 1 micro shift you could commit to increase your internal capacity to be more collaborative in conflict? I know it's a bit of a crazy thought that being successful in conflict might not just be about your communication skills, your technical capacity, but actually more about your metabolism, how you're feeding yourself, what you're drinking, how hydrated you are, how much sleep you have had. Yeah, all of those things that are about self-care. If your body budget is catered for and you are nurturing yourself, you will automatically have a better predisposition to handling the conflict more effectively. And my last slide, my question for you, what is the most important aha moment from this session? I'd love you to pop into the chat of all of the things that I talked tonight, and you may have already known all of them, but what was the biggest aha for you personally? And I will now have a look at the chat questions and see if there's, but feel
Thank you
free
very
to
much.
come off.
Thank you very much, Marina. It's really lovely. Khadija will be joining. In fact, she has a difficult connection today. But just to put my bit in for the aha moment, I think it was just in the beginning when you said that once we see the conflict in the first 15 years of our life, and then for the rest of 60 years, we try to reverse it. So that was perhaps insight revolution. So thank you very much for this lovely session, and the floor is open. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly. So,
Umar, thank you. Can I ask a question?
sure, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. That was so informative, and I loved your recap of the power of conflict resolution. I think that is something that, as an additional benefit to organizations and clients, is very important. But having said that, my question to you is, we talk a lot of methodologies to reduce conflict. How do you deal with the aftermath of the conflict resolution, the emotional turmoil, the fact that people are giving up their egos, the animosity that has festered all these weeks, months? How do you combat that?
That's a really challenging question, and it's a really big question. And obviously, the more people that are involved, the bigger the challenges. I believe that the power of doing this well lies in dealing with conflict before conflict arrives. And it's in that code of conduct so that we have an agreement about how we do this, how we do it well, how we will take responsibility for looking after ourselves, how we will put our hand up if we need help. You know, the individual responsibility, the team responsibility, the leader's responsibility, the organization's responsibility. And, you know, in New Zealand, for example, we have organizations who will give certain numbers of coaching hours or support to individuals going through conflict. And then we have individuals saying, I don't want it. So
I think
we
that's
can lead.
interesting.
We have the saying, I'm sure you have it as well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. So
True.
we need to encourage everybody that we are all responsible for our own behavior, response, emotions, relationships, and one individual can't take all of that responsibility on their shoulders.
So true. Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, Marina, I just want to say it was a wonderful session, I think. So very, very concise. And the lines which you have were so in thought, very, very insightful, thought-provoking. Like for me, as Umar has mentioned, the 2 points, where you started, what we been experienced, and then all our life we try to kind of just, erase that and all. And the last is, I think, so one of the most important aspect, and which is usually much ignored, is what is your physical capacity and your body budget at that time when you're approaching, a conflict situation. So wonderful. And another line, I think, so which really, really stood out for me, I believe it's how we kind of, the power of words. I mean, what are you feeling or what are you fearing? So, I mean, beautifully done. Really, really
Thank
nice.
you.
Thank you.
Good. So, any other questions
Yeah,
from
so
your end?
Umar, thank you. I would like to first of all appreciate Marina because the way she has conducted this seminar is brilliant. And I was actually looking at some of the high learning touch points. First of all, of course, is the parents, which you have already mentioned, 15 years and then less 60 years. That's actually a game changer in terms of understanding the nature of the conflict. And I would like to highlight that it's basically sometimes not at a conscious level, but at a subconscious level. And even the people are not aware about it, that where are they coming from in terms of their, body language, in terms of their language, in terms of their subconscious behaviors. Second is that, and she mentioned about Viktor Frankl. I think that sums up, the way we can respond to the situations which have conflict, and especially in organizations. It is very relevant because it is believed that people would or should leave their personalities outside the organization and come as people from within the organization, and somehow it is believed that they cannot come up with their own personalities. But we know that we cannot leave our own personalities outside the organizational doors and or boundaries. So a big thumbs up to Marina. And one question I have in the end is, um, there's a difference between conflict management and or resolution, and then second is the mediation, or the role of a mediator. So clearly, I would like to understand that what is the difference in your observation and or experience, and what would you recommend to the coaches community to kind of learn? And why I'm asking this question is that I have also experienced that some coaches and some people who actually haven't, their niche is not conflict management, and they are into coaching. I have over the years experienced firsthand that they would actually rather spoil the situation more than to resolve it. So over to you.
Thank you. I think mediation, well, I know in New Zealand there is training, specific training to become a mediator. And I think it's a very, very specialized skill to get involved with mediation. And the honest truth is I don't have interest in that. I'm more excited about teaching what you saw today. I do this as regular work. I would rather help individuals one-on-one than be in a room with a whole lot of people who are highly emotional and have a lot going on and have to navigate and help them. So mediation isn't for me. And I don't think that as coaches, we should take that mantle on board unless you choose to go and get special mediation training. So it's another very specific niched training requirement. Yeah. I don't think coaches need to decide I have to be a mediator for other people.
Okay, Omar, may
Okay, great. Thank you.
may I take a minute? Marina, thank you very much. It was very well done indeed, nicely structured. And you started off with the point that all of us know already, but very few of us recognize that is the reality. But I have an additional question here. In our part of the world, especially, and I think around the globe, when two people get married, and especially at a younger age, and they have children, they're totally untrained for how to manage, how to bring the children up. So, is there a country where it is compulsory for parents to undergo that training before they have children?
There should be. It should be global. Yeah.
I agree. But that's crucial, really, because the reality is, as you described, the 15 years and the 60 years, and that goes on. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you anyway. That was a great session.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Marina, there is a question from Dana, and
Yeah.
she is asking about what are the main priorities a coach needs to address when it comes to team conflict.
Well, I do a lot of team training, and conflict comes after they've had extended disc coaching. So the way that I do it is I profile them. I do a 1 hour debrief on them, their styles, their preferences. Then we come together as a team and we talk about team connection, team communication, how the team works. And then we talk about conflict and how the team can navigate that. And at the end of all of that, the team is pretty well set up to manage conflict and understand each other. So I think when you come into conflict just with conflict and not with understanding each other and self-awareness, it's a little bit harder to achieve that. So my pathway is disc profile, team work, and that session is 3 hours. So I manage all of that. I do a one-on-one debrief, and then I do a 3 hour team communication, team connection, team conflict session.
Good. And just one quick question from me also. We in organizations we see a lot of different personalities and their behaviors. So people have different values as well. So
Yes.
how does that variable comes into play when it is conflict resolution? For example, they have an aggressive personality, someone who doesn't want to accommodate or doesn't want to collaborate with others. So
Yeah.
how that mix comes into play?
Well, of course, when you've got somebody who doesn't want to connect and doesn't want to collaborate with others, there's a question about what are they doing in the team? What is the purpose of them being in the team? Should they be staying? Now, I have a situation with an individual who's working in a team harmoniously, but is autistic, high functioning autistic, high intelligence engineer, just doesn't like being around people, is allowed to work from home, and isn't causing conflict, but also doesn't come to anything team oriented. So, that person is actually okay. They're not causing disruption. They're not just not engaging with the team and being part of the team and socializing with the team. But I do have team leaders that I work with who struggle to lead their team members, and they think that coaching from an external coach is going to assist their team member to become a better person in the team. Well, that might help, but I believe that we need to be helping team leaders become the coaches of their team members so that they're managing the moment by moment things that are happening. Because if you come in as an external coach to help a team member on behalf of the team leader, you're kind of given a bit of a wish list of things to address, but you weren't there, you didn't see it, you don't know how it all happened. So I would rather empower the team leader to be more confident, to hold courageous conversations, and to be an appropriate leader of their difficult person. Rather than me helping the difficult person, I'd rather help the manager to make the decisions that the manager needs to make in a situation by situation approach.
True. And I think it is a very gradual process also within the teams. In fact, you have to keep on doing all these stuff because people take time to understand different personalities and thoughts and ideologies, and we should give time to the team also. So thank you very much. If there isn't any other question, or if there is, please
Umar
ask.
Sahab, I have one more question. Oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I'd like to take 1 minute or so. Excellent session, Marina. I would like to appreciate your effort in helping everyone understand the importance of reaction and response and how do we differentiate that. Because whenever we respond, it has some kind of a logical reason behind responding, whereas reaction is something which which is done at the spur of the moment without any sense behind it. So conflict, on the other hand, if we look at the positive side of it, creates a lot of understanding between two individuals, and then it also unleashes the dimensions related to a situation or a problem. So in an organization, if you look at the positive side of it, conflict is usually instilled within the culture, the organizational DNA, to ensure that people look at one situation from different lenses. So when it comes in place, that makes the organization an innovative one, and it also helps people to get to a point where they learn from each other. So one needs to understand that conflict is something which is positive as well. So we need to embrace it, and we need to also learn how to navigate through it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Ji, Romana, quickly, if you...
Very quickly, yes. Out of the whole sleuth of competencies that are required for a coach, what would you rate as the 2 or 3 top essential competencies that a coach must build in their repertoire to manage conflict effectively?
Do you mean from the ICF competencies list?
Well, it could be ICF or otherwise.
Oh, can I please think about that one?
Yes, absolutely, Ji. We'd love to hear from you at a later stage. In fact, if you share your email, I could just drop you a line.
Well, yes, that would be, yeah, sure.
Great.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone. If there isn't any other question, we will conclude the session now. But before we conclude, we'll take 2 more minutes. And if there is, we will take your permission also. We would like to have a group picture, group virtual picture. For that, we would like everyone who wishes to open their cameras, and then we can take a group picture. And once, and by the way, once our members or associates are taking the picture, we would also announce our next session, which would be on November 28th, which will be next month. It is again a Friday, so that's our regular program structure that we have on every last Friday. If you are new to this session today, please note that every last Friday of the month, we hold this session with a new speaker. Today, we were very fortunate to have Marina with us from New Zealand, and it is almost night in New Zealand. So thank you very much, Marina, once again. And our next session will be on 28th of November. And for that session, we will have a speaker from Saudi Arabia, Dr. Iftikhar Nadeem. And his session, he is a master certified coach, an MCC, and his session would be on learning theories, how the learning theories inform coaching in the organizations. So I hope the pictures being taken. There are a few people from Australia also. There are people from around the globe. I can see Iftikhar Chaudhry Saab sitting in Australia, very near to New Zealand. And there are a few other people. So thank you very much, everyone. If there isn't anything anything else, so we could call this a day with a big applause, and thank you to Marina.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care,
Okay.
and see you next time, inshallah, again. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.